For those who are just joining us, this is Albert Grande, who is I'll call him the Goodwill Ambassador for Pizza Expo, as well as the International Goodwill Ambassador for pizza itself, the founder of pizzatherapy.com. I should have put on my pizzatherapy.com t-shirt. I will for the second episode, because I've kept it ever since you gave it to me years ago, and I bring it out for special occasions. In fact, I've worn it so many times that it's kind of wearing out, but I love it. And Albert is living in Hawaii. He's coming to us from, you're coming from what, Honolulu? Are you on the big?
Yes, I live right in Honolulu, Kaka'ako section of Honolulu.
And so, and a lot of you already know him because you've been, followers or subscribers to his website, and have tracked him for years. But maybe for those who don't know, let's spend this episode talking a little bit about the run-up to the present moment, and then we'll talk in the next episode about where we are now and where it's all going. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
So how did you, an East Coast guy, end up in Hawaii and start Pizza Therapy?
Oh, that's a great question. How I ended up in Hawaii is, I'll make a long story short, but I was living in Vermont, 20 below zero. It was February. I had to go out and my wood pile was frozen. I'm chopping out the wood. And I got a call from my brother. He said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm miserable. It's 20 below zero." He said, "Think about coming to Hawaii. You need teachers here." So
when was this, Albert?
This was probably in 85.
So we're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah. So I came over and got a teaching position, started teaching school and special education. And in that, my parents would come over to visit very once in a while. And one of those visits, my mom came over and she brought a pizza stone. She gave me your pizza recipe. She said, "Albert, you like to cook. How about trying pizza?" Well, that very night, my brothers were there, my mom, my dad, our girlfriends were there. I made pizza and I found, hey, man, I really like making pizza. So I started making pizza more and more, and I incorporated it into the school, in with my kids, my classes. Because I was a special ed teacher, I was very lucky that I had an oven, an actual kitchen in my room.
When you say special ed kids, what are the challenges that some of these kids have to learn?
Special ed really encompasses a whole wide range,
exactly,
from autism to severely severe students with lots of learning disabilities. I worked within that whole range. Earlier, I was working with kids that, let's call them students that were pre-juvenile delinquents, I guess. These are the guys that I work with. And then I moved into multiply handicapped students. And in that room, and actually in all my teaching rooms, I had a full-on kitchen. So I started with that, and I'd make pizza regularly for them. And I found out I really liked it. They loved it. It was something really new. And then within there, a few years after that, my dad got sick, and he developed Alzheimer's disease. And I was very, very close to him, and thinking how close and how much we love each other. How can I honor him? How can I do something for him? And I started thinking, and it just kind of popped in my head, pizza therapy. And what he would do was, when we were teenagers, he would go to a bakery, pick up a pound or two of dough, come home, stretch it out, throw some tomato sauce, pepperoni, cheese, and bake it in the oven. And it was the most amazing thing. He wasn't a pizza guy, but he was a homemade pizza king. And soon, these were the days where pizza was not made at home and at least in my neighborhood in Connecticut, it wasn't made at home.
It wasn't this big trendy thing that it is today.
Yeah, that's right. So
but it was comfort food.
Exactly. So I would invite my friends over. They would come. They started insisting that they come. My dad would hold.
This wasn't in Vermont, though. Were you in Vermont?
This is in Connecticut. This is in Waterford, Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut. I moved to Vermont later. And so my friends would come over regularly, hang out. My dad would hold court. And it was a real way for us to connect with each other. And it was through pizza. And that's what pizza therapy really is all about. It's about my dad.
When I first heard about pizza therapy, I thought of it as the same thing as like like what happens when a person is moved out of a pizza culture area like the East Coast to a place where it's like a pizza wasteland or desert, and is yearning for pizza. But then at the same time, I didn't realize that you were also using pizza in a therapeutic role to teach your students, and that's a bigger part of the story that I didn't know about.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you look at the word pizza, we know what that is. And therapy kind of is a healing, is a way to bring people together. And that, I thought that's what my dad did. So pizza therapy really is a way to honor my dad. And
Wow.
that was just amazing.
Did your
And
dad get to see that happen? Was he still cognizant enough to be able to realize the tribute that was going on?
he did. I mean, yeah, right at the end he did. I was able to show him, obviously the website's changed quite a bit from those early days, which is almost 20 years ago. Yeah, I did. I was able to show it to him, and I think he understood what was going on. Um,
Huh.
but a few years after that, I got a call from you, Peter, and I'm going to give you some props. And you were writing this book,
Yes, yes.
now,
That's how we
and
first connected.
which is just a fantastic book. And we had a conversation over the phone about pizza, and I
I remember.
told you my story, told you what was
Seems like
going
just
on.
yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm telling you. And so that was just an amazing thing. And through you, our interview didn't make it in the book, but you did reference me, and that gave me a lot of props. And then we continued to talk, and really, I have to say, your whole um, thing of that very first interview really kicked me into another whole nother direction. And as a result of that, I did a bunch of audios, and I interviewed you, Gary Bermonti, Chris Bianco, and I released it as an audio set as the Legends
Yes.
of Pizza.
You were ahead of the curve on all that. You were doing it way before all the pizza magazines and before this. And I always wondered, because I would see what you were doing. I think, wow, is the world ready for this? Websites were a new idea back then.
They were,
You
yeah,
really were, at the beginning of it.
yes, yeah, they were. And then I got so excited about it, I did a volume 2. And in volume 2, I think, and again, because of you, Peter, you turned me on to a lot of these people. Um, um, Tony Gemignani, um, Brian Spangler, of course, in a Pizza
Yeah.
Shoals, and the late great Ed Ledoux.
Yes.
And
Talk about some of our
those were some incredible interviews with Ed, who
yes,
really started the whole thing of, I think, of the California pizza stuff.
California pizza. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience with Ed because we've referenced him in some of our earlier interviews with other folks. Most people don't know about it. They don't know he was sort of the secret weapon behind Wolfgang Puck and California Pizza Kitchen. But you did an interview with him. I never got to interview him for Pizza Quest because he had already passed away by then. But I did interview, by the way, for those who were watching, and if you'd like to learn more about Albert and read the interview, we did an interview a few years ago on Pizza Quest, and you've interviewed me on Pizza Therapy. So we've kind of swapped back and forth, sharing our stories. So go to the interview section of Pizza Quest if you want to read the one-on-one interview we had there for more backstory. But talk a little bit about Ed Ledoux and the impression he made on you.
Yeah, well, Ed Ledoux considered himself just a pizza guy. He was just an ordinary guy that made pizza, and he had the passion in his heart, as like, Brian Spangler and Chris Bianco and you and Tony Gemignani and Gary Bamonte. I mean, he had that undescribable feature about him where he was just a common man of pizza. And although a very humble guy, very much like John Arena, I would have to say, very humble,
Yeah.
not putting himself out there, but realized that he had added a lot to the whole pizza scene.
Yeah.
I tried to get him to talk about Wolfgang Puck. He didn't really want to go there. We kind of just skirted the issue.
Yeah, it's a touchy
But
subject because
it, it
he really didn't get the credit he deserved, and I think was hurt a little bit by that because Wolfgang basically, it was all about Wolfgang and the restaurant, and Wolfgang deserved a lot of his credit, but I think it got slighted in all of that because he was the guy that made pizza happen for Spago.
Absolutely. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think as the tale goes, that he taught uh, Wolfgang everything he knew about pizza.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, Wolfgang went in a whole nother direction.
Yeah.
And Ned Ledoux, he becomes a footnote in history who really started it. The other thing that's really fascinating, I think, is his whole relationship with uh, California Pizza Kitchen, where
Yes.
these guys, these three attorneys, are starting a pizza place, and they are ready to open. And in the 11th hour, their chef quits. So they bring in Ed, and
Uh,
Ed creates the entire menu at the time. I'm sure it's changed quite a bit, but he creates the whole pizza menu for California Pizza Kitchen. And I think, I may be wrong, I think they bought him out or gave him a bunch of cash to move on. And then he opened his own place, California Coyote Pizza.
Coyote Pizza I think in Laurel Canyon or somewhere up in in the hills of LA. And yeah, it's the same story. I mean, when the California Pizza Kitchen book came out, the first thing I did was look through it to see if they gave him any sort of props in the book, and credit for what he did, and not mentioned at all. And it's a weird thing that the town, and this won't happen so much today when creative people make something happen, they get credit for this. But it's sort of like the brand. It was all about the brand, not about the people behind the brand. And I think the
Absolutely.
artisan pizza movement has kind of changed the dial on that and made it really as much about the people as it is about the name and the brand of the company.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, the interview that I did with Ed, I think was just fantastic. And he shared so much about himself and about creating pizza. And I asked him at one point, I said, Ed, what is more important, the crust or the toppings? Where do you come from that?
Yeah.
And he summed it up. It's my feelings exactly. He said, Albert, they're equally important. You can't have one without the other, and you blend them together, and you get something incredible.
Yeah.
And one of the best things I think about Ed that we could say toward the end of his life, he emailed me and he said, Albert, I've been invited to go to Washington, D.C. The Smithsonian is putting on a festival and they're naming me a national treasure. And I thought, wow, that's about time. So wonderful.
I didn't even know about that. That's obviously I got to go back and read that interview you did with him. Was that
no, it wasn't in the interview. This was after the interview came out. Yeah,
when you did interview him, did you do it as a audio or as a written?
No, I did an audio. I did an audio.
Again, you were ahead. That was like before podcasting was the hot thing. You were creating podcasts in a sense.
Yeah. And there was a lot of editing involved. I mean, it was really, really tough. Peter, I used to many years ago. One of my one of my things that I did was I worked on radio part time. And
you should, because you got a great voice. You got an incredible radio voice.
And in those days, I think I covered the Barrie City Council, the Montpelier City Council, in addition to playing music and stuff. But when I would do the interviews, you do it on tape. You had a reel to reel, and then you would use a razor blade to cut off the parts you didn't want. Are you familiar with that?
I started out in radio too, and I was in broadcasting and film school at Boston University, and I would edit everything with the scissors and Scotch tape.
And Scotch tape, unbelievable! What was that about? And now,
now it's so easy.
You can do it electronically. It's just obviously so much easier. So
it did give you a sense of power to know that you could, cut out like 1.5 inches of stuff that you didn't want and put it together and make it sound kind of seamless, which of course editors have known forever. Yeah. But when you first learn those skills, you kind of feel like, wow, there's a lot of potential here to kind of like manipulate the medium to create a better product.
Yeah. One of the guys at the radio station said, if you really get good, you can even edit out a Southern accent and make it sound like they're from, the Midwest. I don't know about that. So
well, that's kind of cool that you had those roots, and so you did all these interviews, and in the next episode, I'm sorry, we'll talk a little bit about more of what you see coming down the road, because you're kind of, like I said, ahead of the curve on a lot of these things, and we're jumping in, and which means you're kind of like the like a barometer, or the canary in the coal mine guy who's like telling us, what's happening, what's coming next. But going back to those days, so who were some of the other people that you interviewed that like were really that touched you or made an impression upon you?
Well, certainly Tony Gemignani certainly did. Just an amazing guy. Kind of funny because, again, this was many, many years ago. I don't know, about 2006. Tony had just won his the award at in Italy, and that
Yes.
was great. He said, I wanted to go from an acrobatic guy, but I wanted to go to the next level. I want to be a pizza guy.
Yeah.
And he really did. I mean, he's just incredible. So he has certainly touched me. John Arena has blown my mind. And this guy reached out to me, and again, I'm so blessed that he did. And we talked. He had, at the time, he had a course at UNLV. And I met John the first time I went to Pizza Expo, 10, 12 years ago. And John, spending time with him in person was just so amazing. He's the godfather of pizza. You have the series, the Yodis. He's the Yoda of Yodas.
Yeah, he is the first guy that I thought of. He is the Yoda of pizza.
He is. And he's just a wonderful guy. The amazing thing I find about John Arena is that not only, I mean, he's very talented. He's been making pizza for 50 years. He grew up in a pizzeria. He knows the whole deal, but he's so willing to share everything from the business to the pizza. And always feels like he's growing. And what's amazing too, he'll take these young guys and then they become collaborators with him. It's not like he's a mentor. He doesn't see himself as a mentor. He sees himself as what he calls himself, a pizza guy.
Pizza guy,
you
yeah.
know?
But I think that he is one of the main, but not the only sort of piece of leaven in the pizza community who has instilled it with the spirit of generosity. Because the spirit community, for those who have gone to the expos and gathered at these big gatherings, the sharing that goes on and the lack of sort of like secret techniques that are guarded and protected the way it used to be, that's kind of been replaced by the spirit of that we're all in this together, and there's enough to go around. We can all be successful. We might as well all get good at it. I think John was one of the guys who really kind of spurred that by genuinely, without any planning or forethought on, just it was that way, and then it inspired other people to become that way as well. And there's certainly others that have been influential that way, Tony Gemignani being one, and others who have really shared their knowledge and have, without calling them mentoring, they have influenced people directly and indirectly to raise their game to whole new levels.
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference in pizza. I don't think you find that collaboration in any other industry, but the pizza guys, the real pizza guys who get it. And again, Peter, I just want to say, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about the chain guys and those guys. Those guys are over there. They're over in the, the left side of things. They do what they do. I do what I do. You do what you do, whatever. But I'm talking about the real artisan pizza maker.
Yeah. Yes.
They're very willing to share all their knowledge, all their passion with anyone else who wants to come into the game.
Yeah.
I think Paulie G says, I don't see competition, I see collaborators.
Yes.
And I think that's so right. I mean, that is just so right on the money
Absolutely.
in the world of pizza.
And it's been great because when you enter into a community of people like that, you feel so welcomed, and you don't feel that you have to be on guard all the time. You can just be yourself, and you just relax and enjoy it, and also soak it up. I mean, you and I have walked around Pizza Expo together as you're officially like one of their ambassadors at the expo, and I'm a speaker at the expo, so I'm sort of officially there, in some capacity. But the two of us walk around, and it's like everybody, as we walk by them, everyone says, "Albert, good to see you," and you're getting hugs everywhere, and it's like, and we're just soaking up the joy and the love, and picking up a whole lot of stuff through osmosis as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The workshops are amazing, and it is pretty incredible. And you walk down a row, and there's Roberto Carparuccio creating pizza in front of you. Jonathan Goldsmith is making pizza, talking to you, and
it's like the Woodstock of pizza.
It is. It is.
All we need is like a big mudslide.
You're right on the money. You're absolutely correct. It really.
let's go back to this, to your work as an educator then. So what are some of the things that you teach your students when you're teaching, when you're using pizza? What are some of the tools that you use that kind of connect with them and get them
Yeah.
engaged?
Yeah, one of the cooler things about making pizza with students, and again, as I said, I started with special ed students. We'd make pizza regularly, 2 or 3 times a month. We do pizza. Then I had a friend who taught regular ed students. So
Okay,
we
let me
kind of,
interrupt for 1 second, Albert,
sure.
because we're running out of time on this episode. What I'd like to do is let's pick it up in the next episode. We're going to start from where we're leaving it, and we'll come back on round two and continue this story, because
Okay,
I don't want to cut you off in mid story. So
sure.
so all of you who are watching, please join us on part two with Albert Grande, the godfather of pizza therapy, pizzatherapy.com. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Okay.
So I'm Peter Reinhardt, along with Albert Grande, the founder and creator of pizzatherapy.com. And Albert, in the last episode, you gave us the story of how it all came to happen, how you started pizza therapy, and the fact that you're doing work with young people with learning disabilities and using pizza as part of your pizza therapy for them. And you were just about to tell us a little bit more about how you do that. So could you continue that story?
Sure, Peter. As a special ed teacher, I was very lucky enough to have a kitchen as part of my classroom. So being the pizza guy that I am, we'd make pizza regularly, and happy to share it with whoever walked by, and of course a lot of people who were interested. One of my fellow teachers said, Albert, how about if we try to incorporate this into one of my classes? And it was pretty fantastic, because she had it was called a wheel, and she would teach different segments within a semester. I think there were seventh graders at the time, seventh and eighth graders. And so we were able to incorporate the regular ed students with my special ed students.
Oh,
Special ed students had made pizza a bit, and for the regular ed students, it was all brand new. And here's how we set it up. We would do 3 sessions. The first session would be an intro. So we'd go into the class. I'd go in with a couple of my special ed students. I would introduce them to the kids. Because the classes were like 30, we could only accommodate 6 to 8 at a time. We had a full-on oven, full-on kitchen. We had tables, industrial baking tables that were able to set everything up, but we couldn't do a class of 30, obviously. So we do like 6 or 8. And so the first class was an intro. We talk about pizza, how we're going to make pizza. And I think it was real important that we set the limit right then. We're going to make pizza. This is what we're going to do. This is, these are the behavioral expectations. We're not going to throw the dough around. We're not going to play around. We're not going to do that stuff. It's real serious. Yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun within limits. And so the first class that we would do would be dough. So we'd make the dough. We'd have the kids measure out the dough, make the dough, mix the dough, and we'd do small portions of dough where they would team up, two, and we'd use a modified dough recipe. We'd make the dough, and then we would put it in the fridge and let it ferment. And the way the classes were, if it was longer, like it was a week and 3 or 4 days, we'd have to freeze the dough and then defrost it that morning. And then the second part was actually making the pizza. So we'd start with the dough. And again, using one of the big philosophers, I think, of pizza, less is more. And so we really have to control these kids. As you can imagine, they're teenagers. Yeah. They want to plop everything on. They want to pile everything up. No, pizza, sure. We're not going to do that. And in the classroom itself, we had an oven set up, cranked up as high as it could go with 2 pizza stones, and we'd crank out the pizzas that way. And it was just amazing. The amazing thing was the relationships that developed with my special ed students and the regular ed students. And it was magic, Peter. Just was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever realized. It was just incredible.
Let me ask you this, because of the image I got, I almost gave me shivers up my spine. I was thinking that here are these special ed kids who probably are used to kind of almost being maligned and looked down upon by the quote higher functioning students. Here they're coming in and they know more than the others, and so they're leading the way, and suddenly the playing field is equalized. Is that kind of what happened?
Exactly, exactly. Now, again, these are students with multiple handicaps, uh, not a lot of independence. So there was a real collaboration. The regular ed students would kind of help them a little bit, help them with measuring and those things. There were fine motor skills that they really didn't have.
So did it help build bridges that carried over after the
It
class
did.
into regular
Yes, it did. And certainly the making the pizza was just amazing. And then equally amazing was the eating of the pizza, because
life?
that was part of the class. When we
Yeah,
were finished making the pizza, and we cracked, oven as fast as it could go, maybe 5-6 minutes,
yeah.
pizzas would come out. They'd sit around, we'd sit around together, we'd chat, we'd play games, we'd hang out. And we were able to, because the classes were like maybe 90 minutes, we were able to do 2 sessions per class with every student.
Wow.
And if I could show something, I have it right here. Then you get something like this. I don't know if you can see this. You get something like this.
Did one of the students create that?
Students made it for me.
How cool.
Thank you, Mr. Grande.
Oh, sweet. How nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you get that,
Yeah.
and you want to cry.
It makes it all worth it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, that's the magic pizza. For me, that's my personal journey, is being able to spread that with pizza. Now, again, living in Hawaii, these kids don't know a whole lot other than the chains. They don't know much about it, and about making pizza. They never thought it was possible. The amazing thing, Peter, as you know, with your longevity, as I've gone around the community, I'll meet kids that are 18, 20, 22. Hey, Mr. Grande, you remember we made pizza together?
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Wonderful?
Tear at my heartstrings.
That's when you really appreciate the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, since you mentioned that Hawaii, certainly when you got there was sort of a pizza a desert, but Hawaii is not all that distance anymore. The world is so much smaller. What is the pizza culture like in Hawaii? At least you're on Oahu. What's it like there, or maybe across some of the other islands? Are you?
That's a great question.
I met a few
and again,
who were
10
open
10 to 15 years ago, I'd say the best pizza in Hawaii, you're going to get it in my kitchen.
Yeah, right.
But since then, the whole pizza game has really upped. And so we have some excellent pizza makers here. There are some just phenomenal pizzas who really get it. And I'm not, there are even a bunch of people that are making pizza. To me, it just misses the mark. I know they're, flour, water, salt, and yeast. I understand that, but they just don't get it. But there are a few that really do, and I would mention them to you. There is a place in Honolulu called J.J. Dolan's. They've been around for probably 10, 12 years.
J.J. Dolan's?
Yeah, actually they changed the name to J. Dolan's, but they make a New York style pie, which I think is pretty good. Another friend of mine who I met at Pizza Expo, his name is Matt. He has a place called Brickfire Tavern, trained under Enzo Crocchia from Italy, learned how to make pizza. And interestingly enough, I met him at Pizza Expo, and he and his wife said, we're opening a pizzeria. Oh, fantastic. And so I got a chance to be part of that whole beginning. They are total Neapolitan style, a puffy kind of crust, wood-fired oven, real artisan pizza, and they really spread the joy. So it's just fantastic. Another place here in Hawaii is the Pizza Corner. Friend of mine owns it. They make poke pizza, which is just amazing.
I think it's got to be. I love poke, and how could you not put the two together?
Yeah, you wouldn't think it goes together. It really does. Sure. Obviously, it's the kind of thing that you got to eat it there. You're not going to reheat it the next day.
Exactly.
It's raw fish.
Yeah.
So, but it's just amazing. And I have a friend of mine, Tommy Iannucci, who's on the island of Kauai, and he is just an amazing guy. Someone else I met early on, when it was probably my first expo, and he was just talking about opening a pizza place. Now he owns 2. Right before the pandemic, I got a chance to go over and spend the day with him. And we made pizza from 5:30 in the morning till 7 at night, just making pizza, seeing how his dough operation is. But he makes one of the best New York style pies I have ever had. It is right up there. And again, I'm not a New York pizza expert,
Yeah.
but for me, it was just incredible. He does a dual thing. He does Neapolitan pizzas as well as a
But I
dough
think what
oven.
this proves is that as the knowledge of dough knowledge and of cooking knowledge and sort of the whole culinary world has kind of informed everybody else, it can be done. There used to be sort of this belief that, well, Hawaii, it's too warm of a culture, it's too humid, there's no way we can make breads and pizzas of that caliber. But we can, if you know what you're doing, and it sounds like these people know what they're doing. You can create and recreate pizzas comparable to the ones in their origin cities and regions.
Absolutely. I think you're really right. People have really upped the game. Interestingly enough, a conversation we had probably 10 or 12 years ago, I got it on tape, where I'm talking about, I'm teaching the class, and I don't know where it is, somewhere in the archives.
Yeah.
But I remember you saying the whole game of pizza is changing because the artisan pizza guys are coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
And boy, you predicted this many, many years ago, and you were so right.
See it coming like a wave, yeah.
And it's just,
and I think we talked to Steve Green from PMQ magazine recently, who pointed out, and I thought it was a great statistic for all of us to know if we didn't already know this, that about 51 to 52% of all the pizza that's consumed in America is produced by like 13 companies, the big chains.
oh
And then
yes,
the other 48% is divided among the thousands and thousands of independent pizza operators. But yet it's those independents who each are we'll call the artisans within the pizza movement that are also influencing the big companies because
yeah, well, that's right.
but it's such a
That's right.
big pie and it's almost 50-50 split, but still this 48% is divided among thousands of people. And Steve's saying, it's possible for some of these guys to up their revenues by also learning from the big chains on some of the things that they've learned, especially about marketing.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so I think that, and so we try to, I think it's important not to, and on Pizza Quest we try not to do this, but also at Expo we don't put one against the other. It's one big pizza community because each of the independent franchise operators are also small business people in their own right. They just happen to be tied to a larger brand. And a lot of people on the independent side would like to be the next big brand. So,
Yes,
there's a lot of this going on, helping each other. But we've learned. But it's the artisan side that drives the craft. And this is where someone like Tony Gimignani, who says respect the craft, and John Arena, who's constantly teaching about, these hands and the craft, they're creating the template that will drive the whole pizza community to better and better quality
boy,
product.
that is really a very interesting thought. I really hadn't even looked at it that. That is quite a connection. You're right. The little guys need to look at the big guys for the marketing aspect, and the big guys need to look at the little guys for the artisan aspect.
And believe me, they do, and they are, because you can see how even the Domino's and Pizza Huts of the world have greatly improved the quality of their pizza and the frozen sector. Because I chart all these things. The frozen sector has totally raised its game, and you can get some pretty decent quality frozen pizzas out there because everyone's learning from each other, and they're using a lot of the same methodology. The frozen pizza companies are using some of the artisan dough techniques. And I want to go back to one more thing that you said in our last episode, that when we were talking about Ed Ledoux, and Ed talked about toppings and dough being equal to him. And a lot of people that that I speak to, and I'm in the other camp that believes that the crust is 80% and the toppings are only 20%, because and my reasoning for that is that you can have the best toppings in the world, but if you put them on an average crust, it's just going to be an average pizza. But if you have sauce and cheese and nothing else but on a great crust, you've got a memorable, amazing pizza. And Ed and I had this conversation with Ed myself. I know that he really was more of a topping guy than he was a dough guy. He had a good crust. He had a very good, and when he brought it to Wolfgang Puck, it was better than anything else that was out there, but it wasn't his passion. His passion was working with local, fresh ingredients to create unique, flavorful toppings that were international. That was the big breakthrough. They took, pizza and made it an international flavored product. So I know that his balance is more about toppings than on the crust. But I think that it has to start personally with the crust. And that's where I think the artisan bread community, as well as within the artisan pizza community, have really helped everybody raise their game. So,
I totally agree. I mean, but I have to say, I'm not going to name any names, but the other day I went and bought a pizza. Now, made by an artisan guy, and the crust was just fantastic. It was impeccable. It was an excellent crust. But putting it together as I tasted it, and I guess I'm a discerning pizza guy, and I know you say there's only
you've
good
had
pizza.
a lot of pizzas, you know what to look for.
You say there's only good pizza and great pizza.
Yeah.
And this was, I'm going to add another category. There's okay pizza. And this was okay pizza. It just didn't do it for me. Now,
So
I don't
he
know
had a great crust, but somehow he screwed it up by messing
did.
up. All right.
He did.
So
The
that's
tomato sauce just didn't pull it together.
Yeah, yeah. So you can mess it up by not having good time. And you have to have both. Obviously, Ed was right. You have to have both to make a great, memorable pizza. But I normally don't think about people messing up the top because it seems so simple.
It does.
But if you try to do too much with the top, or your sauce is unbalanced, or this or that.
Yeah, this guy, I've had his pizza before. It's okay. And this pizza maybe was just an off day. I'll give him another chance, but the pizza just didn't come together for me.
Did you have a conversation with him yet, or has he?
I have. He was kind of busy. But I will. I will.
Feedback either,
Yeah. No, some people get very defensive. They don't want to hear that their pizza isn't that good. So
yeah.
What are you going to do?
The customers in the end will dictate it. If it's not that good, the business won't be so good either, and then they'll open up to like new ideas, or maybe they'll come to Pizza Expo and they'll go to a workshop that one of our friends are teaching, and they'll come back with a new idea, and it'll raise their game like it has for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. If I can, I want to go in a little bit different direction, if I can.
Okay.
Talk about this great book.
Oh, good.
This is fantastic. I was one of the testers. So honored.
That's right. You were a tester.
I was one of the testers for this book.
You got some of the early version recipes.
Just fantastic, and it's just incredible. I've been making a lot of Detroit, and I've gotten it from this book, which is just incredible. I got to talk about
it for you. I'm going to sign it.
All right, sign it for me. I want to talk about my book, the pizza. I got a little tiny book.
Let's get a plug
Therapy Pizza book,
and how people can get it.
Yeah, just go to pizzatherapy.com/pizza books, and you can find it. You're not going to learn how to make artisan pizza, but if you're beginning to make pizza, this may help you out. But I want to tell you, I want to kind of pull it together here. There's a section in the book where I talk about, actually, it's an interview with Chris Bianco. This is what Chris Bianco said. And by the way, the interviews you had with Chris Bianco, just incredible. The guy's a philosopher of pizza. I love listening to him.
Yeah, he is a philosopher.
What an amazing guy.
We're going to be having him back, and he's going to be on together with Rob DiNapoli.
And I love DiNapoli Bianco. I just made spaghetti sauce, gravy the other night, gravy and meatballs, and that's what I used. Just fantastic.
Great product.
But this is what he says. He says, I don't consider myself a pizza master. And this is from the interviews that I did with him many years ago. I think pizza is something you can never master. If you disrespect it, it'll disrespect you right back. And I think that's true. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah.
But also on the same page, I'm going to say this. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Peter. I have a postulate, Grande's pizza postulate.
Okay.
And that is this. While making pizza, all mistakes are inevitable. I think I understand it because I made millions and millions of mistakes. I want to come back to this. I want to be self-deprecating. I want to kind of rank on myself.
Every pizza master we've talked to has said the same thing in all the interviews, that they've made and if they hadn't made the mistakes, they wouldn't have improved.
Okay, so here's your book. So I want to talk about this for a second. Great book. I'm doing the master dough recipe. Okay. Now as I said, I was a tester, so whatever. Yeah. But as I'm looking at the master dough recipe, okay, I'm making the dough, I'm making the Detroit, and I made it a couple of times, and I said, man, Detroit, this is good, but the crust is just so thick. I can't understand it.
Yeah.
And I made it several times, and I even made it for my wife's aunts and cousins. They said, oh, this is great, but the crust is just a little thick. And I went back to the pizza recipe and I looked. The master dough recipe is for 2 pizzas.
Yeah,
not one. I've been doubling it. I feel like such an idiot. And I
Yeah.
come back to my own, well, making pizza, all mistakes are inevitable. Man, I just felt like an idiot. But anyway, I did figure it
But
out.
you know what? There are lots of pizzas in the, we'll call the old style bakery pizzas that were that thick with dough, and I didn't like them either. And one of the things we've learned from the Detroit pizza masters like Jeff Smokovich and Sean Randazzo and some of the others is, to give that dough time. You don't need a lot of dough in the pan, but you need to give it time to rise and gas
Right.
up. And then it looks like a thick dough, but it's actually a lot of air. And that's
Yes.
where because
Yes.
air is an ingredient, and it
Yes.
makes it taste even
Yes.
better.
Well, I
So
have to say,
go ahead.
I want to say thank you for, I mean, it was you taught me Detroit. I mean, I've seen Jeff make his Detroit pizza several times. I've had it, but your book really explained it step by step. You broke it down.
Thank you.
And it was just fantastic. And
So now, have you tried making it with half the amount of dough?
oh, please, yes, I figured it out. And now, now people are loving it. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I've taken it to a bunch of, in Hawaii, it's very common when you bring food, you go to somebody's house, you bring food or family gatherings or whatever, and the families have just gone nuts. Yeah, it's something they've never had. There isn't Detroit here in Hawaii, and you're not gonna.
Could you teach your students and your special ed students how to
I
make?
haven't yet. Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of semi-retired from teaching.
Yeah.
Although I do go back and substitute teach, and so and then they asked me to come back, substitute teach, and make pizza for us.
Yeah, don't come back if you're not going to make the pizza with us.
Yeah, please do.
Well, Albert Grande, thank you so much for spending so much time with us, sharing these stories. We'd love to have you come back on. I think we could talk for 10 hours just swapping stories with some of the things we've learned from others. And you're such a great storyteller and bring a lot of heart and soul to your work, but also to your expression of that work. So we love talking with you. Thank you for pizzatherapy.com and for all the work that you've done and the whole thousands and thousands of people that you've reached. So join us, when you can. Let us know anytime you're available, and we'll get you back on, and we'll do some more talking.
I will. I'm humbled and thankful and grateful, Peter, and thank you for you. I mean, I'm really very thankful for your friendship, for your mentorship. I can't thank you enough. I really feel like if I want to say, you kicked me to the next level, and
thank you.
And that conversation many years ago did, and I'm very appreciative of it, and all my love and pizza energy to you. And I have to say, pizza on earth, goodwill to all.
Exactly. And when we hopefully get back to Las Vegas for the next Pizza Expo, whenever that is, we'll hang out again together and walk through and get dinner and catch up again. But we'll maybe do it before that back here on Pizza Talk.
Okay.
Whenever you want to join us.
Thank you, Peter.
Albert, thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Aloha.
Thank you all for watching, and join us again next time for another episode of Pizza Talk.